Hello and welcome. My name is Alan and we are back with more, not Gatorade, Diary of Anne Frank. So yeah, we're continuing on that. So we're starting to really see the effects of the Holocaust as many of their Jewish neighbors are being rounded up and everything. But yeah, let's go ahead and hop back into this. Monday, November the 2nd, 1942. Dear Kitty, Bep stayed with us Friday evening. It was fun, but she didn't sleep very well because she drunk some wine. For the rest, there's nothing special to report. I had an awful headache yesterday and went to bed early. Margot's being exasperating again. This morning I began sorting out an index card file from the office because it had fallen over and gotten all mixed up. Before long I was going nuts. I asked Margot and Peter to help, but they were too lazy, so I put it away. I'm not crazy enough to do it all by myself. Anne Frank. P.S. I forgot to mention the important news that I'm probably going to get my period soon. I can tell because I keep finding a whitish smear in my panties, and Mother predicted it would start soon. I can hardly wait. It's such a momentous event. Too bad I can't use sanitary napkins, but you can't get them anymore, and Mama's tampons can be used only by women who have had a baby. Comment added by Anne on January the 12th, 1944. I wouldn't be able to write that kind of thing anymore now that I'm reading my diary after a year and a half. I'm surprised at my childish innocence. Deep down, I know I could never be that innocent again, however much I'd like to be. I can understand the mood changes and the comments about Margot, Mother, and Father as if I'd written them only yesterday, but I can't imagine writing so openly about other matters. It embarrasses me greatly to read the pages dealing with subjects that I remembered as being nicer than they actually were. My descriptions were so indelicate, but enough of that. I can also understand my homesickness and yearning for Morche. The whole time I've been here, I've longed unconsciously and at times consciously for trust, love, and physical affection. This longing may change in intensity, but it will always be there. Thursday, November the 5th, 1942. Dear Kitty, the British have finally scored a few successes in Africa and Stalingrad hasn't fallen yet. So the men are happy and we had coffee and tea this morning. For the rest, nothing special to report. This week I've been reading a lot and doing little work. That's the way things ought to be. That's surely the road to success. Mother and I are getting along better today, but we're never close. Father's not very open about his feelings, but he's the same sweetheart he's always been. We lit the stove a few days ago and the entire room is still filled with smoke. I prefer central heating and I'm probably not the only one. Margot's a stinker, there's no other word for it. A constant source of irritation, morning, noon, and night. Anne Frank. Monday, November the 9th, 1942. Dearest Kitty, Yesterday was Peter's birthday, his 16th. I was upstairs by 8, and Peter and I looked at his presents. He received a game of Monopoly, a razor, and a cigarette lighter. Not that he smokes so much, not at all. It just looks so distinguished. The biggest surprise came from Mr. Van Daan, who reported at 1 that the English had landed in Tunis, Algiers, Casablanca, and Oran. This is the beginning of the end, everyone was saying, but Churchill, the Prime Minister, who must have heard the same thing being repeated in England, declared, "This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is, perhaps, the end of the beginning." Do you see the difference? However, there's reason for optimism. Stalingrad, the Russian city that has been under attack for 3 months, still hasn't fallen into German hands. In the true spirit of the annex, I should talk to you about food. I should explain that we're real gluttons up on the top floor. Bread is delivered daily by a very nice baker, a friend of Mr. Kleiman's. Of course, we don't have as much as we did at home, but it's enough. We also purchase ration books on the black market. The price keeps going up. It's already risen from 27 to 33 guilders, and that for mere sheets of printed paper. To provide ourselves with a source of nutrition that will keep, aside from the 100 cans of food we've stored here, we bought 300 pounds of beans. Not just for us, but for the office staff as well. We'd hung the sacks of beans on hooks in the hallway just inside our secret entrance. But a few seemed split under the weight, so we decided to move them to the attic, and Peter was entrusted with the heavy lifting. He managed to get 5 of the 6 sacks upstairs intact, and was busy with the last one when the sack broke and a flood, or rather a hailstorm, of brown beans went flying through the air and down the stairs. Since there were about 50 pounds of beans in that sack, it made enough noise to raise the dead. Downstairs, they were sure the house was falling down around their heads. Peter was stunned, but then burst into peals of laughter when he saw me standing at the bottom of the stairs like an island in a sea of brown, with waves of beans lapping at my ankles. We promptly began picking them up, and beans are so small and slippery that they roll into every conceivable corner and hole. Now, each time we go upstairs, we bend over and hunt around so that we can present Mrs. Van Daan with a handful of beans. I almost forgot to mention that Father has recovered from his illness. Yours, Anne. P.S. The radio has just announced that Algiers has fallen. Morocco, Casablanca, and Oran have been in English hands for several days. We're now waiting for Tunis. Tuesday, November the 10th, 1942. Dearest Kitty, great news. We're planning to take an 8th person into hiding with us. Yes, really, we always thought there was enough room and food for one more person, but we were afraid of placing an even greater burden on Mr. Kugler and Mr. Kleiman. But since reports of the dreadful things being done to the Jews are getting worse by the day, Father decided to sound out these 2 gentlemen, and they thought it was an excellent plan. It's just as dangerous whether there are 7 or 8, they noted rightly. Since this was settled, we sat down and mentally went through our circle of acquaintances, trying to come up with a single person who would blend in well with our extended family. This wasn't difficult. After Father had rejected all the Van Don relatives, we chose a dentist named Albert Dussel. He lives with a charming Christian lady who's quite a bit younger than he is. He's probably not married, but that's besides the point. He's known to be quiet and refined, and he seemed, from our superficial acquaintance with him, to be nice. Mip knows him as well, so she'll be able to make the necessary arrangements. If he comes, Mr. Dussel will have to sleep in my room instead of Margot, who will have to make do with the folding bed. We'll ask him to bring along something to fill cavities with. Yours, Anne. Thursday, November the 12th, 1942. Dearest Kitty, Miette came to tell us that she'd been to see Mr. Dussel. He asked her the moment she entered the room if she knew of a hiding place, and was enormously pleased when Miette said she had something in mind. She added that he'd need to go into hiding as soon as possible, preferably Saturday, but he thought this was highly improbable since he wanted to bring his records up to date, settle his accounts, and attend to a couple of patients. Miep relayed the message to us this morning. We didn't think it was wise to wait so long. All these preparations require explanations to various people who we feel ought to be kept in the dark. Miep went to ask if Mr. Dussel couldn't manage to come on Saturday after all, but he said no, and now he's scheduled to arrive on Monday. I think it's odd that he doesn't jump at our proposal. If they pick him up on the street, it won't help either his records or his patients. So why the delay? If you ask me, it's stupid of Father to humor him. Otherwise, no news. Yours, Anne. Thursday, November the 17th, 1942. Dearest Kitty, Mr. Dussel has arrived. Everything went smoothly. Miep told him to be at a certain place in front of the post office at 11 a.m. when a man would meet him, and he was at the appointed place at the appointed time. Mr. Kleiman went up to him, announced that the man he was expecting to meet was unable to come, and asked him to drop by the office to see Miep. Mr. Kleiman took a streetcar back to the office, while Mr. Dussel followed on foot. It was 11:20 when Mr. Dussel tapped on the office door. Miep asked him to remove his coat so the yellow star couldn't be seen, and brought him to the private office, where Kleiman kept him occupied until the cleaning lady had gone. On the pretext that the private office was needed for something else, Miep took Mr. Dussel upstairs, opened the bookcase, and stepped inside, while Mr. Dussel looked on in amazement. In the meantime, the 7 of us had seated ourselves around the dining table to await the latest addition to our family with coffee and cognac. Miep first led him into the Frank family's room. He immediately recognized our furniture, but we had no idea we were upstairs, just above his head. When Miep told him, he was so astonished he nearly fainted. Thank goodness she didn't leave him in suspense any longer, but brought him upstairs. Mr. Dussel sank into a chair and stared at us in dumbstruck silence, as though he thought he could read the truth on our faces. Then he stuttered, "Aber, but are you nicked in Belgium?" The officer, the auto, they were not coming? Your escape was not working? We explained the whole thing to him, but about how we deliberately spread the rumor of the officer and the car to throw the Germans and anyone else who might come looking for us off our track. Mr. Dussel was speechless in the face of such ingenuity and could do nothing but gaze around in surprise as he explored the rest of our lovely and ultra-practical annex. We all had lunch together. Then he took a short nap, joined us for tea, put away a few belongings Miep had been able to bring here in advance, and began to feel much more at home, especially when we handed him the following typewritten rules and regulations for the secret annex of Daans production. Prospectus and Guide to the Secret Annex, a unique facility for the temporary accommodation of Jews and other dispossessed persons. Open all year round, located in beautiful, quiet, wooded surroundings in the heart of Amsterdam. No private residences in the vicinity can be reached by streetcar 13 or 17, and also by car and bicycle. For those to whom such transportation has been forbidden by the German authorities, it can also be reached on foot. Furnished and unfurnished rooms and apartments are available at all times, with or without meals. Price free. Diet low fat. Running water in the bathroom. Sorry, no bath. And on various inside and outside walls. Cozy wood stoves for heating. Ample storage space for a variety of goods. 2 large modern safes. Private radio with a direct line to London, New York, Tel Aviv, and many other stations. Available to all residents after 6 p.m. No listening to forbidden broadcasts with certain exceptions, i.e. German stations may only be tuned in to listen to classical music. It is absolutely forbidden to listen to German news bulletins, regardless of where they are transmitted from, and to pass them on to others. Rest hours from 10 p.m. to 7:30 a.m., 10:15 a.m. on Sundays. Owing to circumstances, residents are required to observe rest hours during the daytime when instructed to do so by the management. To ensure the safety of all, rest hours must be strictly observed. Free time activities, none allowed outside the house until further notice. Use of language. It is necessary to speak softly at all times. Only the language of civilized people may be spoken, thus no German. Reading and relaxation. No German books may be read except for the classics and works of a scholarly nature. Other books are optional. Calisthenics. Daily. Singing. Only softly after 6 p.m. Movies. Prior arrangements required. Classes. A weekly correspondence course and shorthand. Courses in English, French, math, and history offered at any hour of the day or night. Payment in the form of tutoring, e.g. Dutch. separate department for the care of small household pets with the exception of vermin, for which special permits are required. Meal times. Breakfast at 9 a.m. daily except holidays and Sundays. At approximately 11:30 a.m. on Sundays and holidays. Lunch, a light meal from 1:15 p.m. to 1:45 p.m. Dinner may or may not be a hot meal. Mealtime depends on news broadcasts. Obligations with respect to the supply corps. Residents must be prepared to help with office work at all times. Baths. The wash tub is available to all residents after 9 a.m. on Sundays. Residents may bathe in the bathroom, kitchen, private office, or front office as they choose. Alcohol for medicinal purposes only. The end. Yours, Anne. Thursday, November the 19th, 1942. Dearest Kitty, just as we thought. Mr. Dussel is a nice man. Of course, he didn't mind sharing a room with me, to be honest. I'm not exactly delighted to have a stranger use my things, but you have to make sacrifices for a good cause, and I'm glad I can make this small one. If we can save even one of our friends, the rest doesn't matter, said Father, and he's absolutely right. The first day Mr. Dussel was here, he asked me all sorts of questions. For example, what time the cleaning lady comes to the office, how we arrange to use the washroom, and when we're allowed to go to the toilet. You may laugh, but these things aren't so easy in a hiding place. During the daytime, we can't make any noise that might be heard downstairs and when someone else is there, like the cleaning lady. We have to be extra careful. I patiently explained all this to Mr. Dussel, but I was surprised to see how slow he is to catch on. He asked everything twice and still can't remember what you told him. Maybe he's just confused by the sudden change and he'll get over it. Otherwise, everything is going fine. Mr. Dussel has told us much about the outside world we've missed for so long. He had sad news. Countless friends and acquaintances have already been taken off to a dreadful fate. Night after night, green and gray military vehicles cruise the streets. They knock at every door asking whether any Jews live there. If so, the whole family is immediately taken away. If not, they proceed to the next house. It's impossible to escape their clutches unless you go into hiding. They often go around with lists knocking only on those doors where they know there's a big haul to be made. They frequently offer a bounty, so much per head. It's like the slave hunts of the olden days. I don't mean to make light of this. It's much too tragic for that. In the evenings, when it's dark, I often see long lines of good, innocent people, accompanied by crying children, walking on, ordered about by a handful of men who bully and beat them until they nearly drop. No one is spared. The sick, the elderly, children, babies, and pregnant women, all are marched to their death. We're so fortunate here, away from the turmoil we would have to give a moment's thought to all this suffering if it weren't for the fact that we're so worried about those we hold dear, whom we can no longer help. I feel wicked sleeping in a warm bed while somewhere out there my dearest friends are dropping from exhaustion or being knocked to the ground. I get frightened myself when I think of close friends who are now at the mercy of the cruelest monsters ever to stalk the earth, and all because they're Jews. Yours, Anne. We'll go ahead and end this episode there, but yeah, so we're seeing a lot of what's going on. So the Germans go around, the Nazis go around knocking on doors asking if any Jews live there. And one of the things you'll remember they talked about was they took Mr. Dussel's coat so his yellow star wouldn't be seen. Jews during World War II had to, in the occupied territories of the Nazis, had to wear yellow stars of David to mark that they were Jews. Kind of similar to the Scarlet Letter, if you've ever read that book, where a woman who was accused of adultery was forced to wear a scarlet letter signifying her crime. But yeah. It's so you're forced to identify the fact that yes, you are Jewish, and thus you are prevented from certain things. And then when they decide to take you in to the concentration camps, you are pushed to extreme ends. If you've ever seen pictures of Jewish people that had been in concentration camps, they're very frail, skinny. You could see their ribs. Yeah. It's really sad. So, those that don't die, who somehow survive, they're not in great condition. As I said, they're skin and bones. And this brings us to why there's always been such a push against anti-Semitism, because of the evils especially portrayed in World War II. There are other moments in history where they've been the unfortunate victims. However, Israel today is doing to the Gazans what was done to them in the Holocaust. Killing, torturing, just because they can. Just because they want to. Just because they feel they have the right. No matter what evil has been put upon you, it is not your right then to be able to go, I can put the same evil on you. No, that does not work. So, yeah, to know what happened and then to know they're committing these same kind of evils to the Gazans. Yeah. Anyway, we'll end this episode here. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my... Well, I don't have any, so... Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.